My guest today is Jeff Daubney. He is the founder of the ICE Method. He's based in Tulum, Mexico. And we are going to be going to an experience led by him and his partner, Janis White, at my retreat in Tulum. That's April 23rd through 27th. And if you want in, we've got a good group coming, but we can still fit a few more. So if you want to come with us, it's going to be an epic experience. You can find out about that at taragarrison.com/retreats. All right. So Jeff, he is like such a cool, I'm so aligned with, I think like the way that he integrates with health, he has like a big focus on fasting and metabolic health and all of that. But he also is an incredible free diver. He has a background in business and he works with high performers of all sorts on how to really optimize their health. And also he mentions at the end of the episode, people with cancer also, which is so cool. But yeah, through freediving and getting trained in Wim Hof methods, he created his own breathwork method. So it's like a little bit of DMT release, getting the nervous system ready to go into the cold. And yeah, this is like just the wisdom bombs on breath and cold and how you combine those two. So I'm excited for you guys to learn. I asked him a lot of good questions, I felt like. So if you're curious about exploring this more, or you've already explored breath and cold and you want to find out a little bit more of the background of what's going on, I think you'll really enjoy this episode. So we will go ahead and get into it. Here is Jeff Daubney. All right. So Jeff, we are tuning in from Tulum in Big Island, Hawaii. We both kind of, I think, decided to drop into some really healthy energies. So thanks for coming on and joining us today and bringing some of that Tulum energy into the show.
100%. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. So some of my people might be familiar. You're going to be facilitating a really cool experience for us at the retreat I'm doing in Tulum in April, and cannot wait. Can you first of all, let's start with that. Can you tell a little bit about like what we're going to be doing with you there, and then we'll backtrack of like how you got to this place of what you're doing now.
Yeah, 100%. So the program that we're going to do on the day that we do the retreat is going to be a breathwork workshop, which is going to help people to find that space where they can hold their breath so much longer than they thought. When a person starts to get into that place of, wow, I can't believe what I could do, that helps to facilitate them getting in the ice bath and getting
Mhm.
a more enjoyable ice bathing experience, a better ice bathing experience, meaning oftentimes you go longer. And oftentimes people want to jump in and do round two. Why? Because April in Tulum, it's warm. You get rid of so many risks that you have with wintertime ice bathing by doing it here in this warm climate. So we're going
Mhm.
to do 3 to 4 rounds of breath work, which includes our proprietary type of breath work, which oftentimes helps people to hold their breath so much longer. And why do we want to get into holding our breath? Well, according to Dr. Mark Hyman and many others, there's a good amount of hormesis and there's a bit of autophagy that goes on when we start to actually hold our breath and we don't breathe, and it starts to allow the body to have a quick cleanse. What happens
Mhm.
to the blood when we stop holding our breath is it arrives back in the brainstem. We get this really beautiful feeling of glimmer of
Mhm.
these hopeful feelings that make us feel strong. And when we feel strong getting into the ice bath, 3 minutes becomes a joke when it's 95 Fahrenheit out. People oftentimes do 5, 6 minutes. And when they get out of a 5 minute ice bath, they're so excited. They were expecting themselves to do one, they did five, and they get that 80 to 100% boost where they just feel absolutely amazing after doing it. So
Mhm.
imagine mixed breath work, ice bathing, a little bit of exercise, bit of theory, and everybody in the room, regardless of their shape or fitness level, will hit PRs for their breath work. So for their breath hold. So I'm super excited
Wow.
to be able to do this with your crew because I know it's a bunch of high performers.
Yeah, wow, cool. Okay, so hold on here. Let's proprietary breath work because I know Adam, who helps, put on the retreats with me, said that you are like a really amazing free diver. Yes, you do free diving.
Yeah, so
So
we
yeah,
started mixing together those principles. So the freedivers are the critical achievers of breath holding, right? Like Wim
right.
Hof, awesome, and it's really cool. But
Hmm.
it's completely different when you're 100 or 300 feet under the water because it's so much more critical. So the freedivers have the best body of knowledge of how
Right.
to actually hold your breath over time. So we
Right.
mix that with the Wim Hof breathing with what we call holotropic DMT release breathing or air packing. And then we create what we call the Wim Hof breathwork sandwich. And what happens is the body gets oxygenated in a way that people who typically hold their breath for 2 minutes will do four. People who do four, we had just had a guy hit 10 minutes in 3 seconds after training for a few months.
What?
And this is
10?
not like a 26-year-old, this is a 52-year-old guy. He's fit. But, a gentleman in his middle years hit over 10 minutes after training for a couple months. So we get people psyched on the breath work. They're going to feel elevated from doing this breath work. They're going to get a bit of
Yeah.
dimethyltryptamine, natural DMT response from doing it.
Huh. Wow. I'm excited. Yeah, because like I'll be real. Like sometimes it's humbling being like the leader of a retreat because when I do breath work and apps and stuff, I'm like, man, I kind of suck at this. So I'm excited to experience what you got there. That sounds really cool.
Ah, it's fantastic. I mean, when you take the average person off the street and you say, how long can you hold your breath? They almost always say 40 seconds, 45 seconds. And when
Right.
you show them quickly, when I say quickly, just a few minutes, that they can hold their breath for two and change, how they see themselves changes. And that's the real power of following your breath. Like, it's no work. Breath work is a bad term, right? We're just following the breath and we're being guided down this place of achieving more. And this is very Dan Brule, who is Tony Robbins' breath coach. And he says the only interaction you have from the minute you're born to the minute you die is through the breath. It's the only continuous interaction you have with your environment, with your world. So when you become a master of it, it opens up doors of possibility that you didn't know were there for you to open.
That's cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me your journey. Like, so you were free diving, and that's obvious. I'm assuming that's how you kind of got into breath. And then when did the Wim Hof stuff come in, or like, how did that journey go for you?
Started just before that. So I exited my first business in late 99, 2000, and I had a good enough run to where I just went skiing. But I grew up on the East Coast at sea level. And all of a sudden, I found myself in Colorado and big mountains in Colorado and Utah and places where I was going up to 13 and 14,000 feet. So I started to study breathing then. I didn't think
Mm,
of it as like breath work. I thought of it as trying to keep up with my buddies who were born in the mountains. So I just started paying attention to how breathing affected me. And fast forward to 2013, I start a tourism company that quickly becomes a freediving shop. And I find myself freediving 5 times a week, sometimes 6 times a week. And I had to adapt and I had to get better quickly. And when I started, I was the same as anybody else who came out of a office or a store job or whatever you want to call it. And I'm in the water. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I can hardly do a base 10-meter dive. And it didn't take long, Tara, to be able to do a 30-meter dive. And it was like, okay, this progress makes me feel strong. It makes me feel good. For my personal thing, it helped me. I love helping people keep safe in the water as well. It's like part of who I am.
yeah.
So when you can show somebody that we can safely do this quite dangerous thing and we can have fun doing it, and you can remove the majority of your limits and boundaries, at least around your physical self and how you think of yourself, I saw how people reacted. And that was when I was like, all right, I'm gonna go into this further and I'm gonna create a method of breath work that helps people
Mm,
to find this spot, whether they're in the water, they're on the couch, they're on the floor, whatever. We only ask that when you're doing this following your breath, that you're still. And that's it. And that's
mm.
hard for some people too. But when we get them in stillness and we get them holding their breath for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, they're different people after that.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that spoke to my soul. That's cool. And then when did the Wim Hof part come in for you? Like,
Breath work, doing the Wim Hof breathing in 18. So I didn't know much about meditating in 2018. I thought it was just something that, people did
yeah.
in California. But I learned about it through Wim Hof, and then that opened me up to so many other forms, whether it was Joe Dispenza or Esther Hicks or you name it. But 18 with Wim Hof, and then ice bathing 2020 because of COVID. And
Mm,
and I'm one of those people, like I went to a Wim Hof seminar and then I bought an ice bath, like probably that night on my phone on Amazon. And then all of a sudden I was just ice bathing every day after that. And I went through serious loss like we all do, losing a sibling in 21 in the ice bath and the breath work, which is what I attribute to helping me stay at least on the sane side of crazy while I was going through all the feelings that a person would feel when they go through a heavy loss. And then it just went nuts. And then all of a sudden we were ice bathing several thousand people a year through 2022, 23, 24. And now I've chilled it out because the network became so big, and so broad that we were doing 120, 130 events a year where you have 10 to 20, 25 people come. Now we do private events like yours, and we can connect with the amount of people that we have. But and
Mm.
let's give a shout out to Morosco Forge at moroscoforge.com. They, first Edge Theory Labs sponsored us, then Morosco sent us down an absolutely beautiful ice bath that's here in Tulum now, and it's the Rolls Royce of ice bathing as well.
Why is it the Rolls Royce?
It's fully ozonated. You don't need any
Mm.
chemicals in it. You're allowed to put as much Epsom salt as you want, so your clients and yourself start to uptake magnesium while they're in the ice bath. Absolutely, like in terms of the design, anatomically or ergonomically, however you want to look at it, it fits your body perfectly. So when, sometimes when you're using the older ice baths, your neck would be on a fulcrum like this, it would
Yeah.
cause. Now the Morosco thought it all out. So big ups to
Morosco.
those guys. Yeah, moroscoforge.com. Big ups to those guys because
Mm.
these are the Rolls Royce in terms of cost as well. But it's the one you'd see on Joe Rogan or Andrew Huberman. They all have Moroscos. And the reason why is
Okay.
when you get out of an ozonated Epsom salt filled ice bath, oh, you feel at peace. You feel great.
Mm. Okay, cool. Wow.
Yeah,
All right. Excited about that. I don't know those guys. I'm like, what? How come I don't know those guys? Now I know. And now I'm going to be geeking out on that. Thank you for the info.
yeah.
Okay. And so like when you branched into the ice bath start of it, like I mean you were going through grief. And I totally resonate. When I started with cold therapy too, I was going through like a very traumatic time of my life. And I think that's why Wim Hof spoke to me because I was like, okay, you were going through trauma. And then these are the things you experienced. I'm going through trauma, something. And then I understand the health benefits side of it too. When I'd have to be crazy not to try this. And it was, that's a great way of saying it. Would you say the sane side of crazy? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the same still being absolutely nuts and going through those things. And Wim Hof said one thing that I remember, and he said, breathe in love and exhale out angst, or something along those lines. And that resonated. That was like, if
Mm,
I just breathe in love and exhale out stress, that's what he said. Breathe in love,
yeah.
exhale out stress. Those words were enough for me to be like, all right, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to
Yeah.
do that. And sometimes I'm going to do it twice a day until I feel like I don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, how often do you do this personally at this point in your journey?
I'm like still 4 to 5 times a week, but 3 ice baths each time. So I go over, I get in the sauna at the Tulum Jungle Gym, which has an amazing sauna, Tulum Sauna Club, or Tulum Sauna, TulumJungleSauna.com. So we just got a brand new sauna over there as well. So at least on a minimum week, I'll go 3 times, 3 to 4 rounds of hot sauna, like 90 Celsius, 185 Fahrenheit, and then right in the cold plunge for 3 to 5 minutes. And I'll do that three to 4 times each night. If I'm
Mm.
feeling like I want to, or my schedule allows, I'll go 5 times a week. I could ride my bicycle or walk there. It's that close to my house.
Nice. Yeah, and we're going there too. I didn't know they had a sauna, so cool.
At the
Um,
sauna's new since last we talked, and we decided to park the Morosco there. We also have an Edge Theory Labs tub there, but it's beautiful.
nice. Okay, cool. Well, you're welcome to come join us at the Jungle Gym when we go if you'd like.
Oh,
And Janice, your partner,
yes,
Janice, does this with you. So we'll look forward to
because
meeting her also. She seems phenomenal. You guys just both have such good energy. So I'm really excited for you to, I don't know, for my people to meet you guys and just experience the energy that you guys both bring to the world. So thanks for that.
thankful to do that with you. And we definitely try to bring the full gamut of masculine and feminine energy together, and try to relate to each person as their own unique experience. So yeah, aside from doing all the following the breath and breath holding, we are going to do some, we never throw people just into an ice bath if they've never been into one. We let their bodies get used to it. We have a bit of a process
Mm,
where we warm them, we cool them into the ice bath by getting the mammalian response going by splashing their face, their arms, their upper chest, their low back. And so it's a nice process. It isn't, you know, Wim Hof is awesome, but the Wim Hof way is to get in and shut up. And we don't do it that way. We have a much
cool.
softer, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I'm curious about this. That's actually what I was gonna kind of ask you next. Cause like, okay. I mean, granted, the first I started with cold showers and I was living in Utah and it was winter time and I lived in the basement and the ground was frozen and just that house, like, I mean, sometimes showers can get really cold and it was really cold. And I definitely like I started with 15 seconds and I definitely was like, "Oh, yeah," like freaking out a little bit or whatever. But pretty quickly I got into a place of like, bring it, baby, bring it, all the discomfort.
Bring
Ah,
it.
and I think anybody who has experience with cold plunging kinda I it's typical to kinda get into that, like, you just go straight into breath and just, like, release. But, like, I've definitely been around people who are like, they'll say things like they feel like it's unique to them, like, they're like, "Oh, I don't do well with that." And I get curious about that. I'm like, "Tell me more, like, is there a physiological component to that, or is it mindset?" Or, like I'm just curious since you've done this with thousands of people, when people are resistant like that, like, what do you see underneath that?
It's everything you mentioned and a little bit more, and it's interconnected. So, if we were just to look at different types of people and bodies, some bodies feel pain and some bodies just feel less pain. And there are people who, especially around the toes, the feet, the ankles, and the calves, feel it in a way where when they get out of the ice bath, they're actually stiff. And then there's people like me who can sit in an ice bath for 40 minutes or 50 minutes and get out and be able to do squats and lunges and have no problem. So there's
Whoa.
a circulatory difference in people that we try to um, let them know that is real without allowing for excuses. Because you can mind over matter stuff, but then at the same point, we want it to be beneficial and we want every part of it to be beneficial. So do some people feel it more than others? Absolutely. Are some people more emotional than others? Absolutely. Do some people get in and it's easy for them? Yeah. You know who that general group is? Moms. Moms who have already birthed children are like, this isn't really that big of a thing. It's just cold water. But you
Mm.
take like, and they're gonna kill me for this, but you take like guys who fight MMA and Thai fighters who love to be so in control of everything, and you ask them to surrender to the fact that the cold water doesn't give a crap about them or their feelings.
Mm.
That's a hard group because they're so used to imposing their will. And ice bathing has nothing to do with imposing your will. It has to do with knowing the art of surrender and how to apply it. So
Wow.
moms are the best ice bathing clients typically. They're just
Wow.
like, hey, this isn't really that painful. It's not really that uncomfortable. You guys should learn how to do this. Like that's the general attitude we have from 98 out of 100 moms.
Wow.
And this is another funny thing, and I'm gonna tease all my Italian buddies who live here. But if you take a hyper controlling Italian man who likes everything just so, and you throw him in an ice bath, they're probably gonna jump out and scream a little after 30 seconds. So it's a different coaching. So Tulum's filled with Italians and they're my business partners and my friends. So I like to tease them.
Yeah.
You take a mentality of a person who's open to being coached, and they'll probably be pretty good at ice bathing.
Mhm.
If you get somebody who imposes their will, a stockbroker, a professional fighter who's made their living around imposing their will, ice bathing will create a whole different set of circumstances than it will for a mom for them because it's all
Wow.
about surrender. You got to surrender to what is because the ice doesn't give an F about you. It won't change
Wow.
you. It doesn't care about you. So if you're a person who's used to turning knobs and pushing buttons and keeping control of uh, air traffic control or whatever it may be, people have to learn how to surrender. And we help them to learn how to surrender. But there's some people who surrender is a really hard concept for them.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you
Oh,
for giving some props to the moms, by the way, because like in the training industry, it's always kind of bothered me. Like, be like, yeah, I mean, all the way from professional athletes to soccer moms. And like, it's like the soccer moms are referred to as like the weak, like lesser humans or something. And I'm like, well, I'm a mom. I'm pretty tough. And I think most moms are pretty freaking bad A. So thank you for giving them some credit that is due. Hmm.
somebody who's a hardcore control freak, they're going to struggle that first time in the ice bath. And then they usually, when they learn the art of surrender, the next thing that comes is tears. Like, ah, you mean
Wow.
when I don't try to control everything, I get to relax? Oh, wow. How fantastic. What a great feeling.
Mm. Yeah, it's okay, maybe something about this or maybe not, but like when you stick your head under, okay? Cuz I've done breath work, getting into cold. I really love the breath work before. I have noticed I haven't done your method, and I can tell I haven't even done close to your method. You got people hold their breath for 10 minutes. Holy crap. But just some breath work before getting in. Like I've had experiences where when I stick my head under, it literally feels like a braingasm. Like it's just like it's so euphoric, like pure pleasure. It's so interesting. Like, what is that? Do you know?
Fair amount of chemical response that happens. So whether it's, Gary Brecker, Andrew Huberman, they all talk about the different types of proteins that are released. And generally, when you get
Mhm.
in cold, your liver releases cold shock proteins, which are
Yeah.
going to like scrubbers. But there's so many more things that happen inside of the serotonin pathway. If it's dark out, it'll happen with the melatonin pathway as well. Serotonin, oxytocin, norepinephrine, dopamine, you get a hit. So it's the same as if you were a kid and you took a drag off of a cigarette, and all of a sudden your dopamine went through the roof, and you're like, "Whoa, I didn't know that was coming." Well, an ice bath will do the same exact thing. So
Mhm.
when you feel it in your brainstem, typically that's that beautifully oxygenated blood. So your organs will shunt off. The blood flow will come to them. Yeah, or I should say your arms and legs will shunt off. Blood flow will come to them, but there's a ton of chemical reaction going on in the body when it happens. So that's why when we put our head under, it just, for most people, it feels like peace and love and harmony and energy, and it feels fantastic.
Yeah, it's like euphoria almost. It's just like, I feel so good. Let me do it again.
Yeah, and I do it like 5, 10 times a night. And at the start of the mammalian response to cold water, where the blood starts to leave your hands and feet, travels through your arms and legs, and comes to your center body. So Wim Hof talks about this all the time, that the most alkaline blood is your organ blood, and your most acidic blood is the blood furthest out in your fingertips. So when we do that reset, what Wim Hof calls the reset is basically just getting a little tick, or blood alkalinity doesn't change very much, but moving within the range up and down makes people feel. So all of a sudden that happens, and all these neurotransmitters, so, whether it's daytime or nighttime, serotonin, melatonin, and then all of the hormone response of dopamine and oxytocin, it just makes people feel like they ate a bunch of chocolate or had a bunch of sex or whatever it is that
Right.
you're used to, that feeling and getting that hit of hormone response and neurotransmitter response.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite delightful. Okay.
Well, when you hold your breath as well.
Yeah, because like, okay, if you're I didn't realize you were getting to the point with your breath work where there is maybe a little bit of DMT release. And I'm a big fan of holotropic breath work and plant medicines and all of that. And I'm just based off of what I experience sometimes, even just being in the cold, because I meditate, I notice that something about the cold brings me into this like universe awareness. Like I go like, like it's a really elevated place. It's really interesting. I've observed like what heat where I tend to go if I'm meditating and alternating between like hot tub or sauna to cold, like I notice that like in the heat, it's more like life earth stuff that starts to like as I'm like just really, and then when I get in the cold, it's like phew, like universal truths. It's really interesting. And I'm curious, like with combining those, like do you have sometimes like what should I say, spiritual experiences? You've got to. You've got to.
Psychedelic as F. Absolutely is. It
Yeah.
becomes very psychedelic your breath for a long period of time. And again, it relates to a lot of the things that happen to a body when they ingest plant medicine. Especially for those people who are experienced, those pathways are already open. So whether it's the breath holding or the hot and cold or contrast, a lot of those same things that, again, back to the dopamine, oxytocin, or epinephrine, well, that's what happens when you take plant medicine or even chemical medicine. Whether we're talking about low dosing MDMA or mushrooms or whatever it is, a lot of those same pathways are engaged when you're doing
Right.
contrast therapy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I jump on a little motor scooter and come home from contrast therapy, and I it's hard to knock me off my block at that point. I'm centered, I'm
Right.
calm. My
Right.
body's been filled with cold and heat shock proteins, and along with all the other neurotransmitters. And when we talk about sauna's healing because it helps remove oil soluble toxins from the body, which build up over time. And then if you really research it, you see that they're a lot of the cause of dis-ease before we become diseased. So we start to get those things out of us, and then we start to get in the cold, and all of a sudden our lymph system is ringing out, and all of a sudden we have a lot less toxic load. Well, a body with less toxic load and more dopamine and norepinephrine and oxytocin, you feel that shit. You're aware,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I feel that. I feel
Right.
connected to the universe. I feel
Right.
some altered state of being in a great way, an elevated state of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah. Like
cruising home, I'm like giggling on my scooter, because I'm
right.
like, I'm high, but I'm certain that I'm sober. How
Right.
interesting. That's Wim Hof talking about getting high on your own supply. It's
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that methyltryptamine is in you already.
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between like if you have a caffeine high or like you just ate some really high vibe food and you're like feel real energized from it. It's like the energized high vibe food kind of it's like, wow, I feel good. I am like a pure vessel. I am clear. I am good to go. Like it's that
Right?
real energy kind of thing. Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
really taken to mixing caffeine with cacao here too, because what a difference. Like get some really nice coffee and split it equal parts with cacao and get that huge antioxidant boost from it and that
Mm.
energetic boost of this sort of spiritual ancient cacao.
That sounds like my kinda vibe. Cool. Okay. Okay, question for you. One time so we have a spa here that has, like, a cold plunge and, like, a barrel sauna and a hot tub, and I like to go do the contrast therapy there, and one time I overdid it because I get pretty like, I'm like, "How long can I stay in this sauna?" And, like, and back and forth, and I got super dizzy, like crazy, like, I thought I was gonna pass out, do you think that's just from, like, I overwhelmed my system from too much contrast, or I wondered if I just got dehydrated? Do you have thoughts on that?
Could be both, like
Yeah.
your body is when it, you know, when you overheat a body, it has all of these things to protect yourself. But one of those things, again, is getting the blood to cool the body, right? So we're moving things around, so we start to feel a little bit, whether you want to call it dizzy or
No, I was hearing, like, the freight train, like, I was getting the funnel vision, like, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pass out for real right now, okay."
hydration going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're the same. Like we're in that sauna, but it's a bunch of high performers and ladies and gentlemen nobody wants to get out first. Like if you ever follow Jesse Itzler, he always talks about, he's the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, and he always talks about this. He's like, nobody knows we're in a contest in the sauna with me except for me. But if I get in there after you, I'm not getting out till you get out. And he just got beat by a guy who was, sitting in the sauna for 2 hours. But you got to really prep yourself if you're going to do long sauna with enough sodium, potassium, and magnesium. And it's more than you think it is, and enough
Mhm.
oxygen to get through, because we want to get a
Enough
little
what?
hydration to
Oh.
get through. Like, we speak in liters here, but I'm always having a couple of liters of water in the hours up, but I'm also having a solid teaspoon to tablespoon of, whether it's Baja Gold or Celtic salt or whatever, some
Mhm.
high quality salt. That's the trick. You want to win in the sauna, go in there well hydrated with plenty of magnesium, sodium, and potassium in your system, and it won't be nearly as hard.
Yeah, I definitely chug like Relight Redmond real salt's like a higher sodium, and I always bring like a mason jar full of that. But I think I was going ham. I wasn't trying to. I go to the spa with hippies, so nobody's competitive there. It's just me being like how I am, with myself. But I mean, granted, I've done that many, many times, and it's never gotten me to that point before. And I just have like a little loving like laugh with myself. It's like, oops, you went. That was a little too hard. Okay, noted.
Testing the fringe of capability just a little bit, which is a good thing from time to time. You just want to make sure you have a partner there. And, you
Yeah.
know, I'm not advocating that you sauna till you pass out,
Yeah.
but getting a good hot sauna in really has, there's no arguing that its benefits anymore. And then when you add cold therapy to it, what a difference.
Yeah.
What an absolute difference. And another thing that definitely enjoy doing is cold therapy before the workout, sauna after the workout.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I like that. Yeah, because
What
cold therapy after workouts, even though I really want to do it then because my body's hot and it's easier, it sounds way less daunting. It actually sounds kinda nice, but the research is not good on that.
cold shower, quick cold shower after your workout's pretty fine, but fully submersing isn't actually, the guy, the professor who owns Morosco Forge has written like 135 papers on cold plunge, and he talks about pre-cooled bodies will always outperform a heated body. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about straight endurance work, hybrid work, or strength work. A pre-cooled body will always outperform a heated body. It's a really interesting thing because they know as kids we were always told to warm up, warm up, warm up. Well, we
True.
find actually that it's a lot better to get your joints moving, but go try to, I use push-ups as an example. Pre-cool the body for 5 to 10 minutes and then watch how many push-ups you can do versus not pre-cooling, and you'll blow your mind about how many more you can do. Huberman,
Nice.
Huberman talks about this. My numbers aren't exact, but I'm pretty close. He took a cohort of 12 people, and the 12 people could do 180 pull-ups as a group over X amount of time. And then they pre-cooled them for 2 weeks every day, and that group could do 600 pull-ups after pre-cooling for 2 weeks.
What?
So you talk about
Wow.
gains. That's a serious amount of gains. It's like, whatever that is, three, one,
Yeah.
or X factor. Well, that's huge. You're not going to get that on a PR for a squat, obviously, but you're doing some endurance work, like you're a Spartan racer or something like that. You can imagine how much better. If you can
Yeah.
perform optimally for more time over distance, you're going to do better for whatever you're doing.
And then why the heat after? Because this is speaking of endurance, that's like the opposite. It's like warm up and then getting your ice bath after, right? So this is the complete opposite. So why heat after?
A fair amount of evidence that those heat shock proteins. So when we work out, we know that we create a fair amount of free radicals in the body. So heat shock proteins just after are going to go and clear the body quicker and more efficiently of those free radicals from working out. So you're going to come back to your basal level. So I got a fair amount of business partners and friends who are in the bodybuilding world, and they talk about their workouts. The only thing they can do after is consume calories and take a nap. Well, most people in business can't hit a workout like that because I can't have a 4 hour period like that. So some of these tricks are jump in the sauna for 10 minutes after your workout, get those heat shock proteins working and clear the body of the free radicals, get your calories in, get that metabolism moving in a way that you're refueling, and you'll come back to being able to have your mind. If you're a person who goes full on ham with their workouts, your mind will return. Alex Hormozy talks about this all the time on his podcast. He talks about if he hits a really hard workout, he doesn't work for 2, 3 hours after. So he's got his schedule built so that, he can still be effective at work, but still get the workouts that he likes. But the sauna is like the hack or the tool that you can use to get your body flushed of those free radicals that are happening after a good hard workout.
Well, and even just from a very simple blood flow perspective, like, the vasoconstriction that's going to happen from the cold and then that reactive, like, push of blood flow after seems conducive, obviously, to exercise performance. And then, at least for muscle building, I'm always thinking, well, and recovery in general, blood flow, right? Like, 'cause that's what brings all the nutrients. So it makes sense just even from a simple blood flow perspective to do it that way. So thanks for sharing that.
Mm. And
Quick
if it gets,
question. Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going
Um,
to say, if you only got 10 minutes and you're going back to the office, just pay attention to how your brain reacts if you take those extra 10 minutes to hit the sauna after your workout.
All right, cool. Good tip. Thanks. I wanted to ask you about kids because my sister actually, like her like 11-year-old got invited to this, like, they're in Utah. They were gonna cut a hole in the lake and like have these kids jump in there. And she's like, is that safe for an 11-year-old? And I'm like, well, I mean, just tell him not to overdo it. Make sure he's supervised, like maybe just a quick jump in. I don't know. What are your thoughts on kids and cold plunging?
Kids, let's define them as, say, 15 and under. Um, their bodies feel things differently when they're going through all those changes. So with little kids, I always just go no.
Yeah.
Set up like a cold bath for them, like something like, if we're talking in Fahrenheit, like 60, and let them play around with it, especially if it's hot outside. But I'm not going to ever advocate for children doing cold weather ice bathing because it's hard for them to
Mm,
heat back up.
right. Okay.
And there's a danger factor. So
Right.
I would say no to children. And I would say if we're 11 and up, or let's say I'm gonna treat it with kid gloves. So we're gonna really, like, to a kid, 65 Fahrenheit feels cool. Let them think they're having an ice bath, but don't go throw them in a 32 or 33-degree lake. That's a lot. Like, you're going to turn your kids Russian real quick by doing that, and it's going to go one way or the other. Yeah, so we let them play around, especially after the event's over with. Get their hands in it, get them splashing themselves with cold water. But it's a special kid who wants to actually get in there. But somewhere around 14, 15, they seem to be able to handle it a lot better. than
Oh,
little kids. Little kids tend to jump in, jump out. It's fun. It's more like splashy kiddie pool as opposed
right.
to let's get in here and surrender. You know,
Right.
those
Right.
concepts aren't adult kids quite yet. So the frozen lake, from my perspective, would probably be a no. Let them watch a
Yeah.
little, let
Okay.
them in, but don't chuck them in there.
Okay. Thanks. And then, okay, you mentioned that you do like 30, 40-minute ice baths
Yeah,
sometimes.
but don't do what I do.
I
Uh,
know that's my question is like, well, I'll let you rant on that, but also I'm just curious because like, okay, I'm a advanced in weight training. I've been training consistently. Like there have been no like big chunks off for a decade, you know? Like so like the level of intensity that I need to get to is a lot greater to continue to have a hormetic response, to like have some sort of adaptation. So I'm assuming it's the same way with you because you've just been doing it for so long, so frequently. And I'm just curious, like, I guess, what you recommend people start with, and then like just your thought process on like why you're doing it that long now.
Sure. So I'm super happy to talk about this. So is it so that we break it into two categories? Is it warm out when you get out of the ice bath, or is it cold? Because there's two kind of different protocols for that. So let's say winter ice bathing. So we're in Montreal, and it's January. Kind of cool and short. If you got a sauna to jump in, that makes a huge difference. If you've got hot soup, hot beverage, that makes a huge difference. If you warm yourself just after, you're going to warm back up. But so if it's winter and it's cold outside, you got to get the wet clothes off immediately, and you got to get yourself into a warm environment immediately and start exercising to warm up.
Mhm.
Now, if you come to Tulum and it's 90 degrees outside, well, your real risk of hypothermia is so much less than it would be being in Montreal when it's 0 or negative. So generally, we try to start people between 2 and 3 minutes in the ice bath. Three is the real gold standard to get the blood to come to the center body to do the Wim Hof reset, where the blood is actually changing its alkalinity just a little bit, and you're getting the hormone and neurotransmitter response. So that's like 3 minutes. But don't do what I do. The day that I did the 50-minute ice bath, it was 100 degrees outside, and I had a warm pool next to me. I had a group of 45, 50 people with me. So
Mhm.
don't as a practice.
Right.
Um, but I always say, like, yeah, is there some danger in it? Sure. But it's no more dangerous than driving your car on the highway, probably for most people. But don't do what I say. Warm up, start around 50, 55 degrees. Like Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. He's like, I don't like it at 32, I like it at 50. But I've been doing it every day for like 20 years. So my consistency is what I'm after, but I'm not the Joe Rogan I love the podcast with Joe Rogan where he's yelling at Andrew Huberman for being a wimp because he does it at 48 and 50. And it's all about your mentality. What do you want to get out of it? Don't do
Yeah.
what I say. Do what you want out of it. The day I did 50 minutes, it was my birthday. I'd already put it out to the world that I was going to do it. I said I would do 48 minutes on my 48th birthday. But I told everybody, but I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you
Right.
it worked for you. I wanted to see what my body was possible. What was I was possible. How much can I concentrate on one thing over what duration? That's what I was practicing you know,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
just sit here and breathe for 50 straight minutes. Well, it turned out, yeah, I could. And I
Mhm.
melted the ice and it was great. And then I ate a whole chicken after, which was just a fun thing to do because I was absolutely starving from having to stay warm for 50 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, I think for the competitive types out there, you got a little bit of Joe Rogan in your soul. Be careful because that can get the best of you. And I have had people be like, I think I overdid it. I did a like 25-minute ice bath and they're like new to it. I'm like, why did you do that? You can tell when it's the stressor is too, at least I can tell when the stressor is too much. Like I've been in Utah, my friend had a pool and he's like chucking off the ice, and it was nighttime when we went out there. It's like, 10 degrees outside, and I had been doing cold plunging forever, but like with all my breath and all my presence or whatever, it didn't matter. My whole body was just like shaking uncontrollably. And I was like, this is too cold. This is too cold. So yeah, just honor that when it's like a bit too much.
The right part. And make sure you're doing it for yourself. That's what I always
Right.
tell. I mean, I've done it to show off because I like winning. but that's not the right reason to do it, you
Yeah.
know? But it's also fantastic and amazing to find out that you're capable of more, both in your
Totally.
mentality. Oh, I should say in your physicality, your mentality, your spirituality, and your how you can control your emotions over time. Like, I felt good, but have I done it again since? No, I haven't. I haven't done
You're like,
another because it takes a fair amount of mental prep.
yeah. You're like, I found out I can do that. Cool. Next.
And I can go on. I'm probably not gonna. But we just had a talk with the guy who set the new world record. And humans are amazing. Dude did like four hours and change packed in ice. But if you speak to an Eskimo, they're not going to be that impressed by that. That's regular. That's kind of how they are. But if you take somebody who's by the equator, their body's going to react differently. If you never felt cold, and then all of a sudden, like there's always the joke about like people falling in a lake and dying, and it's not a funny thing. But if you're used to cold water and you fall in a lake, you're probably living versus somebody who's never done it and never felt cold water. It's different. So build
Hmm.
up. Know that Joe Rogan keeps his ice bath really cold, but he does 3 minutes. He doesn't do 12 or 18 at 32. He does three because that's what makes him feel good. And he makes sure he does it every day.
Yeah,
And consistency over going ham is a much
yeah,
better way to your body will
definitely.
thank you. Yeah.
100%. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us and for the work that you've been up to. And I'm very excited to experience what you guys have to offer when we come down there in a couple months. What about like in terms of I know you're kind of trying to tone it down a little bit, but like what do you offer to people? Like what do you want to offer to people at this point?
Right now, I'm focused heavily on changing the narrative with my clients. So I have a super select and small amount of people that I coach, and the majority of these people are people who've built, big organizations and want to regain the narrative about their health. And then on top of it, I have several clients who I do the energetic coaching when they have cancer, and I love that space as well. And we
Wow.
use contrast therapy, hot and cold. We use meditation. We use natural therapy. We get in the gym. We eat a certain diet. We're doing lots of different things. And we have a good team around us who helps people to understand that if you can fast, you can get your body healthy again. The proliferation of senescent cells is just due to environment and lifestyle. And as soon as we switch those things, and check out Dean Hall. Dean Hall wrote a great book called Wild Cure, and I'm going to have a call with him next week.
Mm.
Um, Guy healed him off of cancer. I'm not going to say the person's name, but I just had a client. The second deadliest cancer is liver cancer, and we just had a client heal himself with stage three liver cancer. Using traditional therapies and using some of the new immunotherapies that really help the immune system. Like when I tell you about this gentleman when we're in person, he didn't miss any workouts, Tara, during chemo. He didn't miss
Wow.
anything. It's just things are changing. We're seeing big differences in how these things are treated. So that's a big part of what I do. And it doesn't matter what client I have. It doesn't matter. And this is a true, I got a 67-year-old man from Zimbabwe who's now going cold water swimming as part of his treatment and sitting up against a tree and doing breath work, and using
Amazing.
nature to heal himself of what his environment and things caused. But yeah, that's a lot of what I'm doing. I keep it small, but the way I look at it is my book is always open for the right clients.
Yeah. Right.
But do we
Yeah.
get in the gym and work our asses off as well? Absolutely. One of my clients is the fittest 70-year-old on earth. It's a 3-year project that we're doing.
Mm.
And the guy who runs marathons inside of the Grand Canyon and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh.
We're creating the protocol for the fittest 70-year-old, all the way down to my 31-year-old client who owns a bunch of hotels and restaurants and wants something a little bit different, wants a different level of performance. And that's what we do. But there's always cold and hot therapy for every single client that we do. Some of it's in out in nature, in lakes and rivers, and some of it's in the Morosco Forge and in the sauna at Tulum Jungle Gym.
Awesome. Hell yeah. Cool. And it's great that you have that business background yourself so that you can kind of guide through. You have the empathy, you're like, I know there's a lot on you and this matters and that matters and this matters and you can do it. So awesome.
I typically get them. once they're past that point, with the exception of the 31-year-old guy, but I usually get them on the other side of the exit where their testosterone
Mm,
in the toilet, and they really want to feel better again, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Good.
All
Good.
the money in the world isn't worth anything if you don't feel good.
Hmm. Yep. And I mean, that's such a common story because it's like I've been giving everything I have to building this business and it's time to fix my health. So yeah, you seem like a really good teacher for a lot of those people. So I love that you're doing that.
Space. I don't ever run out of energy inside of that space, and helping people
Yeah.
get, especially when they've had what they thought was a death sentence. Like, if you're feeling kind of low and then all of a sudden you go and do a test and somebody says, hey, you have stage 2 or stage 3 cancer, you can imagine what that does to the person energetically.
Right.
So love helping them bring that energy, that hope, that curiosity, and
Hmm.
and the ability to see things differently. And
Amazing.
again, the world is filled with cures now. It's not 1989 anymore. Like there's a lot of ways to get healthy and get healthy quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think we're very
100%.
aligned on the from the fasting to the type of nutrition to the nature to the uh cold and heat and breath and so yeah, I'm definitely excited for you to deliver some of your experience to my people in Tulum in April. So yeah. We will link up. Wait, what's your website or how do people reach you? Social?
.com, and it's the same, jeffdaubney.com, and my Instagram's the same.
Cool. All right, we'll link it
Um,
up. All right, thank you so much, Jeff.
Real pleasure, Tara. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope it's been helpful to you in your journey. If you think that it might be helpful to someone you know, please share it with them. Please share on social media. It really helps me grow the show and reach more people with these amazing messages. And if you could be so kind as to rate the show and possibly even leave me a review, that really helps. So much thanks in advance if you do that. And yeah, please subscribe if you want to hear more of this type of content. I have lots of amazing expert guests on the way. All right. Thank you.